I'm Peggy Hausman. Unlike you, Barry, I've been married 35 years. And my past employment is I've been a full-time at-home mother and wife to my husband since our children were born, and they are now 28 and 25. I have two sons that are absolutely delightful. So to me, I believe my experience comes from a small business, which is considered Nick and Pat Hausman. And any mother in this room or father can appreciate the fact that you did a budget, you did a household, and honey, I was the attorney in the household. Because I did a lot of legalistic
You
there.
know what? I'm betting you were more than that.
Oh, I'll give you a little bit of background. I've been here to the Woodlands since 1980, 81. We moved in late in 1980. My husband is president and CEO of Delta Rigging, which is an oil field related company, and he works out of Pearland, which makes me a little bit different than most people since I have no obligations financially in Montgomery County. I serve on the Woodlands Township Board. I am currently your director, position 6. When somebody asks me, how did I get into politics? Well, I really never got into politics. When I started in the Woodlands, it was volunteerism. The Township Board of Directors is an unpaid position. We are a special purpose district here in Montgomery County. So the Woodlands is not a city, although we do have the right to lobby a tax, which I have to say, we have Director Bass back here as well from the township. We did drop your assessments, or I say assessments, taxes this year. We have consecutively over the years, but as you're all very aware of, your property values have gone up as well. So with that in mind, we do have a lot of obligations, such as the city, but we are not responsible for many other things. We're not responsible for the roads. That's your county commissioner. We are not in charge of law enforcement. That is a county obligation, but we do supply additional officers here on the street, and we do contract with Montgomery County Sheriff's Department and the Constable's Department. We do also have bonds in the Woodlands. We had over 100, we retired this year, the Board of Directors retired the Regional Participation Agreement, which is $14.3 million, retired that bond this year, paid it off. So, you don't hear that a lot in government. And this, the best question I heard all night was when Paul asked, what have I done on the township? I was one of the first 3 that were elected by the residents to the Board of Directors of the township back 5 years ago. I served on the Community Association. I was the chairman of the Service Corporation. I was the first female chairman of the Service Corporation here. I met with Mr. Mitchell on Fridays. He told me what I was supposed to do and everything I did wrong. And I nodded and said, Mr. Mitchell, and I respectfully disagree. We do not want to be annexed by the city of Houston. It was his wish at the time that we all become a regionally together part of the city of Houston. If you go back and look at all the books on Mr. Mitchell, he firmly believed, and I think over time he settled into the fact that maybe it's better we're independent, but at the time he did not feel that this should become any part except the city of Houston. So go back and look at the history of the Woodlands here. What exactly does the township do? For all intent purposes, we are facilitators of your tax dollars. You give me your money, and I spend it the best way possible. When Paul asked that question, what have I done for the township? Not one thing, Paul, because as an individual of a board of directors of 7, don't ever let somebody tell you one director did something on their own. It takes a majority of that board to pass anything. So if you're not working with people and if you're not talking to people, then you probably shouldn't serve on any board of directors or in any public capacity. What you need are people, and I firmly believe the township is not a Republican Party. We're not a Democrat Party. We're not a Tea Party. We are a non-party. And somebody asked me during the last election, which was kind of a comical change, if not heated in this community, on Peggy Hausman, they asked me, she must be a Democrat. And I went, wow, in Montgomery County, that's kind of like throwing down the gauntlet. And I said, why would you say that? And she said, well, you were at the Democrat meeting. And I said, well, as a township representative, I don't ask John what religion he goes to, what political party. When he calls me, I answer a question. I don't ask him what the affiliation is. And that's kind of with the township. We're not a political organization of any one of the registered parties. But at the same time, we need to answer everyone's questions and answer them equally and fairly. But I could go on and tell you all about the budget, or you can go online and watch and look at it. I can tell you I did run some numbers today, which I found that were a little bit more concerning to me, that might very well help out in the organization here. I ran property tax revenue per capita. Back in 2010, your tax rate was 32.8, and there was approximately 92,000 people living in the Woodlands. Per capita, it was $412.48 per household. It dropped the next year to 32.74, but per capita, it went down to 382.78. We dropped again in 2012, but it went up to $383.62. We dropped the following year and went down $16 per capita, and that was the tax rate of 31.73. This year we went down to 29.40, and it went to per capita $360.84. So it was down $5.82 per capita. So it's a different way to look at the numbers, opposed to when somebody tells you, I dropped your taxes. Just because they dropped your taxes doesn't mean you're paying less. And you also want to ask the question, what services did they drop if they're dropping your taxes? Because if you're not collecting the revenue, then you have to cut the services one way or another. I'm proud to say that the board of directors have kept up public service and public safety here in the community. I'm very, very proud of our fire department here in the Woodlands. We have a phenomenal first responders. We have opened up Central Fire Station. It was torn down and rebuilt because of bond proceeds that were elected by the people here in order to redo Central Station. The township, I firmly believe, is a good voice for the people. And if you have an issue and you haven't brought it up, feel free to attend any of the public meetings and bring them forward. The staff at the township will get you an answer, or they'll get tired of Peggy asking the question. That's normally what happens. You'll get an answer because I've asked it so many times. We also, you guys had questions for me. One of the questions was the water taxes. I get that probably once a week here in the Woodlands. Tell me about the water taxes, Peggy. Well, I read the numbers on that as well today. According to the financials that came out, they said the water taxes, the revenue over expenditures, are up $5,816. It sounds great, except I went to go back and say 2011, I opened up that folder upstairs in the storeroom, and nowhere on this financials is the $500,000 that was given by the township to start up the water taxes. If you would have included the $500,000 in there, but there is a contractual agreement that says it does not have to be paid back to the township general. So with that in mind, the water taxes probably haven't broke even yet. But it is an amenity here in the Woodlands that some will say is for entertainment. It's not really a transportation mode. I'm not even real sure it's a dinner mode, but it is a tourist attraction depending on who you talk to. Should they be shut down? I was not for the water taxis to begin with, but it is what the board has decided, and we are trying our best to make them somewhat profitable, but I was a little bit concerned that that $500,000 was left off this sheet. Yes? What, incorporation? We can call for an incorporation election here in 2014. Now, if you want to be incorporated, there's a lot of steps you have to take prior to that, such as you have to look at your streets. Is it cheaper to have the county maintain your streets, or is it better for us to take over all the streets in the Woodlands? At what is the stages of repair? Law enforcement, you'd be paying 100% for law enforcement. There's been several studies done on incorporation here in the Woodlands. The board of directors voted to place, do not put this on the ballot in 2014 as of yet. The study showed financially it was better to keep the structure we were at. Now it is up for discussion, and I still will contend that covenant-making authority is not strong enough for the Woodlands. We need to have ordinance-making authority. Whether that can be done legislatively in Austin to give us the power to go after people, because just because you do something to your house doesn't mean we can fine you for it. We can take you to court. It's a tedious, long, drawn-out process. And I deal with people every day in which their neighbor's house has fallen down and they want you to do something right away. You can't do it right away in the Woodlands. We don't have the ordinance-making authority. What other issues do we not have in the Woodlands other than that for incorporation? You've got your roads and you've got your law enforcement. You would have to look at your engineering as well as your planning and zoning departments would need to be set up. We are not set up right now to automatically come forward and become incorporated. There would need to be a planning, I would say about a 2-year planning mode to make sure that we have the right necessities. The minute it is voted on and we turn into the city of the Woodlands, we need to be set in place 100%. Because it would upset me to think we didn't have it in place and let's say law enforcement fell through the cracks and somebody got hurt. Whose fault is that? Did we have to be incorporated, or was somebody just shooting the gun too quickly? Yes, I do firmly believe we need to continue to look at incorporation. We're getting too large here. We need to eventually become a city. I believe we do. When is the right time to pull the trigger on that? That I can't tell you. Right now, the study currently says we should not do it at this stage. Yes?
A quick hypothetical question.
Go for it.
If suppose incorporation decided to go forward, et cetera,
Yes.
and the city of the Woodlands then would be responsible for repairing the streets, which right now the county is.
Yes, sir.
The county gets the money to repair those streets from the property taxes that we own here in the Woodlands. Would the property taxes go down? Or?
No.
So
not
they
according
just
to
take that
some
money-
people.
They take that money and redistribute it in the rest of the county, then we pay additional money to the
Yes, sir.
city to keep the streets repaired.
Yes, sir.
That sounds like a really good idea.
That's why we haven't pulled the trigger yet. Because until you have a county where it would say they may not need the full revenue, but let's take it this, if I was a county commissioner or the county judge sitting in Montgomery County and the Woodlands decides to incorporate, I don't know that I would be so anxious to hand all that money back. Can you imagine how many county roads would be repaired within that next year and a half? I'm sure League Line Road would be 8 miles, long on 4 lanes on each side. So, what other questions y'all have? Yes, sir.
What's the risk of the city of Houston?
We cannot. We just paid off the regional participation agreement bond, but we pay 1/16 of 1 penny to the city of Houston, as well as we pay a portion to the city of Conroe. There's a portion of the Woodlands that sits in the Conroe extraterritorial jurisdiction, and we're contractually obligated to them to pay 1/16 of 1 cent in perpetuity.
So that keeps them out?
Yes, that keeps them out, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I live on the other side of the lake, so I don't know, except what I read in the papers. And my question is, how vulnerable are you to annexation to Houston, et cetera?
We're not. That's what we were just.
Okay.
We're in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Houston, the ETJ, and the ETJ of Conroe, because we have contractually agreed to pay 1/16 of 1 cent to them in perpetuity. We cannot be annexed.
Okay, but at what point, if you decide you're going to incorporate, does that mean you have to leave those pieces out, or what?
No. We'll incorporate everything together. We'll incorporate the entire Woodlands Township. I mean, we're not going to be annexed by anybody.
Well, what happens to those contracts then?
They go in perpetuity. It's continuing. Yes.
So you would continue as a
Yes, that's part of what I call the hostage to get out of the city of Houston's ETJ. I
I
mean,
understand.
the annexation legislation in the state of Texas is not fair by any means. And I'm sorry, sometimes if it's not fair, you have to concede, and 1/16 of 1 penny of our sales tax revenue is a pretty good trade-off for not being part of the city of Houston, in my opinion. Yeah, any other questions? Walter is going to ask me a question, and yes, I'm 5 foot tall, and I'm 55. I'm not giving my weight.
You had a very bitter campaign the last time.
Not me.
Yeah.
They did. They had an issue with me.
But you've announced you're gonna run again.
Yes, sir.
And I think it would be stupid for any organization not to endorse you. That's my opinion.
Well, you're a sweetheart.
Now, look.
Now ask me a question, young
I'm gonna
man.
ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
Have you approached, or have they approached you? Dr. Julie, has this gang over here, 4 or 5, that screens everybody, and has she gotten on you, and have you submitted an application to be?
What am I going to be screened on
I
first?
don't know. They go in, and you're gonna probably have to answer, are you pro-gay rights?
Have I ever stopped and not answered a question?
I don't know.
Walter?
How are you gonna answer these social issues
Well-
that Dr. Julie asked for?
Well, I'm going to answer your question for you, Walter. My social issues. Anything to deal with the legalism of, or that's not really a word, but the legalistic aspect of the township, we have wonderful attorneys, not on staff. We contract out with 3 different separate attorneys for separate legal issues. But you know what? I look for them for an opinion. We have a staff. The board of directors sets policy, and we're not a what's the word? We're a policy setting board. We're not an operations board. So the policy would come forward to me as a director. Social issues, I can tell you, Walter, I'm Roman Catholic and very devout.
Well, that's fine, but the Tea Party did get 3 of the 4 township directors elected last time, and Bass is one of them. Where are you, Bass?
Anybody else have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
The 1/16th of a penny. Can you give me an annual number that I?
Yes, I can. I knew somebody was going to ask that question, and I had it in the revenue. I highlighted it here. Mike, do you know what that is off the top? It's $11,000 for the city of Conroe, I know.
I thought it was something like 2 million.
Yeah, I was gonna say 1.7 million is what, I can give you the actual number, if I can find it in my book. But we do pay that percentage. Yes, ma'am. What other questions y'all have? Mr. Paul?
Well, back to your favorite topic of the water taxes.
Oh, they're water cruisers.
Despite all the federal money we got for that, it appears to me that the purpose of those is to promote business.
Well, tourism. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay. Why does the whole Woodlands have to pay for those when really they are promotion for a small area of business? If they want to have limousines for everybody that comes through the mall, fine, if they pay for it. But
Okay, let me go back to just fundamentals ABC. Your property taxes are 42% of the budget. Your sales tax revenue is 44% of the budget. So, quite frankly, the boats over there, whether on paper, no, they don't make money. But neither does your park department, but I want a state-of-the-art park department as well. So with all of that in mind, that's part of economic development. There's an $8 million cash or reserve fund on economic development. We have 2 committees in the Woodlands Township right now. The ad hoc committee on transportation and the ad hoc committee on economic development. I want to know what we're going to use that $8 million for that's in a cash reserve. The minute I get that answer, and I want a definition of what is economic development and what is not economic development. So when we find that out, that will go to the point where sales tax revenue increases your property and lowers your taxes. Now, is the water taxis part of that? Probably not. But the park department's part of that as well, and they make no money whatsoever. But it's called quality of life. And that is what the Woodlands is. The bottom line is your quality of life is what your tax bill is. And the safety of your family. And it should be safety for no matter what the value of your home is. But anyway, other questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, my name is Jim Doyle.
Hi, Jim.
How are you doing? I think in a way they got too many regulators in the woods.
I agree with you.
I remember a time when a guy had a 40 days for life sign he wanted to put out in his yard, and he was told he couldn't do it. Now the Supreme Court says you can, but there were a bunch of these people tried to bully this guy into taking the sign down. And if you want to put a sign up in your yard, I don't care if you live in the Woodlands or if you live in Tall Timbers where I live. And I've got about 3 of them out there. One of them is a 40 days for life sign, it's up all the time. Another one is no new taxes. I've got 2 of them. And another one says that America died November the 6th, 2012, and it's an anti-Obama sign. But anyway, I've got those up, and they're staying up as long as Obama's there anyway. And I think, and I don't live in the Woodlands, but I live close. But in the Woodlands, if somebody wants to put up a sign, they got a right to do that, whether somebody likes it or not.
Well,
That's
there,
just
you know
one
what? I don't differ with you, and I don't agree with you either. But what I'm saying is the Woodlands, when you purchase a home here in the Woodlands, we have covenants.
Yeah.
We don't have ordinance making authority, but we have covenants. And we have regulations. I don't want my neighbor painting his house fuchsia any more than I want somebody littering their house with 15 signs in front of them.
Well,
I'm not necessarily saying you can have one. We do have covenants. There are restrictions on this. I hear people all the time go in front of the DSC, plead your case. But the reason that the Woodlands is so successful is because we maintain these covenants to the best of our ability. It's very expensive to maintain covenants, but it is very expensive to rebuild an entire neighborhood too. Yes, Mr. Paul.
Peggy, I have to speak up. Mr. Bass resigned his position on one of the boards in the Woodlands
From the DSC.
in support of somebody to have the right to put their signs up. And so I appreciate his effort to support the right to free speech.
Yes. Free speech is very much was at stake there. It's not whether you can put up 2 or 3 signs in your yard. You can't do that. But, you know, that debate on that one, and Mike stood very firm, is you can't tell somebody what to put on a sign. Is that any more important than my daughter is a cheerleader at the Woodlands High School? You have to have the right. Now, the DSC has come around to some changes in the standards, but there still is probably a long way to go on signage here and freedom. But the United States pretty much guarantees my right to speak whatever way I want to. You may not like it, but you can't strike me. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, Peggy, having served on the DSC, and I think you know this as well, the thing that people who have not lived in a community that are under deed restrictions and covenants, your constitutional right, those are private contracts. The only constitutional right that those contracts protect is the 14th Amendment. Okay, so when you sign your house, when you buy your house and say you agree to these covenants, you better understand what you're agreeing to. Because the free speech of signage is not a requirement. It's only what they decide to do in terms of our deed restrictions. And the DSC has come around and provided a more flexible
They've had
approach.
some changes and,
Right.
and some variances given on there. What other questions y'all have?
Just a comment on that too, if y'all don't enforce your deeds and you leave it up, it can be taken as invalidation and
Yes.
it can get rid of all your covenants. I mean, that's a danger.
It's a
and
slippery slope, no matter which way you
Put a
go.
sign on your car and park it in your driveway.
Supreme Court.
They can't say anything.
Believe me, there's all kinds of ways to get around things. And but what other questions y'all have? My name? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Maybe somebody can answer this for me.
Go for it.
A neighbor that I've known for a very long time, the son-in-law, the woman who she is the neighbor and so the son-in-law was moved in. Now there's about 5 cars, I'd say at least 4, right almost on pavement. It's on in front of their.
Those are county roads, and the county enforces or unenforces. You can park on a county road here, and as long as you're not impeding someone's driveway, parking in front of a fire hydrant, or causing some type of public safety within the area, such as you have to be able to let a fire truck and ambulance be able to get through the street. But you are allowed to park cars on the, I get that call all the time. And I'll say, if your street is one of those streets that constantly has cars parking on it, call your county commissioner, call James, and ask for a no parking sign on the whole street. But you remember, when you have a party at your house, that means your friends can't park there either. I'm just saying, it's a two-sided sword here. Because the minute I've had neighborhoods that have said, we want no parking signs because we're close to the high school and we're tired of these kids parking on our yard, and I've heard all the sprinklers have been busted on the street. The minute we work very hard to get that sign put on that street, I can guarantee you one of the ladies is having some bunco group at her house, and they're parking on the street, and there's a tow truck coming and towing those cars away. So, and I'm in a bunco group, so I can say that. Yes.
You and Chairman Chair talk.
Yes, sir.
Running again. Have you heard what Nelda Blair's going to do?
I have not, but you're welcome to give Nelda a call and ask her. And no, Bruce filed today. I did not file today. I was down at the Med Center with a friend of mine. So, but I will tomorrow.
Bruce has been a pretty good chair.
Pardon? You know what? Well, I'm not here to comment on directors. All directors serve, in my opinion, to the best of their ability, and the constituents here can vote on whether they want to keep them or not. What else questions y'all have? Well, my name's Peggy Hausman again, and I gave Paul some of my cards. Feel free to give me a call. My cell phone number's on there, my email's on there. I'm probably known as the lady in the yellow smart car parked next to Barry's Suburban out there. So I do drive a smart car because it gets 44 miles a gallon and I don't have to parallel park in Market Street. I can just nose in with my car. So, so I use it for efficiency, and I pretty much stay here in the Woodlands. But once again, I'm a pretty opinionated older woman. I guess I'm not a middle-aged woman now. Middle-aged woman. So with that in mind, if anybody has any questions, feel free to give me a call and I'll make sure it gets followed up for you. Thank you, and thank you for letting me come to your Liberty School. The kids were awesome. They